Welcome into the Fantasy Football Funhouse. We are back. I am at Salito FF. I'm joined by at Kevin Cotillo and, of course, at Sid Skeet, Mr. Steve Marcus himself. We have been quiet for the first 2 weeks, but the guys thought we should come up with an idea that gets us into your ears every week but keeps me from rambling on. So we bring you the Fantasy Football Funhouse Thursday night football show live on Wednesday or delayed on Thursday, whatever you're into. But first, guys, it's been a little while since we talked. So, Kevin, I'm going to come to you first. What kind of fantasy football season do you have, and what injury from this massacre of a week had you tilting the most?
My fantasy football season in general has not been great. I'm up in some, I'm down in others. When you're playing in the numerous amounts of leagues as we do, you're bound to hit on at least a couple. So there are some.
You think so? But in this past week, I barely hit on a couple.
So I got a couple that I'm clinging to as my saving grace for the year. But overall, I think I'm having a down year. I did build a lot of my redraft teams to be second half teams for sure. So I'm hoping that pans out. We'll see. Overall, it's been rough. It's been a rough start. And this past weekend, I'll tell you, I share a team with our good buddy, Big Perm, who you all know from many, many leagues. And we share a team in a Shark Tank league, the second of the kind put on by Peter Gent, the FF German. And in that league, we did the startup and we spent almost all of our money on Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. And that team is now dead with no future to speak of because we, traded all our future to fill out the rest of the league. So that one hurts a little.
Well, the good news is you get pretty much the rest of this season off, and you can think about what rookies you want to attack. Some low-level rookies. I'm sure you spent a lot of that rookie money for those two guys.
It's tough when you lose that, and I'll go on a little dynasty tangent here to kick off the show. But when you lose two players like that in a startup, you really can't do much because the first year of any dynasty league, you're talking about people who, saved assets for the following year or went all in to build a team and try and win in year one. So no one's tanking yet. No one's trying to pick up, these types of guys and pay market value for them. So you're kind of screwed. So, it sucks.
Well, Steve, anyway. Kevin took up all your time to discuss your face. But real quick, Steve.
Didn't you tell me to limit the amount of time Steve could talk tonight?
I did, but you weren't supposed to say that out loud. Steve, in a little bit of time you have, the most important leagues that mean the most to you, how is your season going and what injury is crippling you? And I know which one it is, and I'm happy, but go ahead.
It is Christian McCaffrey, and I'm doing decent in my redraft leagues. I'm doing well to decent in my redraft leagues. My dynasty leagues, you guys are in most of them with me. You know how awful they are. So losing Cortland Sutton and Drew Lock in most of them was not fun this weekend. But
having Drew Lock in most of them is just not fun.
Yet to be seen. Okay. Listen. Anywho, Christian McCaffrey.
I'm with Steve on that one though. I was into the Drew Lock hype this year, so
I can't blame him. Lots of good weapons there. Steve could almost accomplish big things with that group of guys who are all hurt. But guys, listen, we're gonna get deep into the Thursday night football matchup. Not exactly a glowing matchup, but we head down to Florida where the 0-2 Miami Dolphins will visit the 1-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 3 at home, and we have an over-under of 48.5 points. We'll be making some prop bets and picking the winners and over-under at the end. But first, let's roll through the fantasy aspects of this game. We'll start with the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew is not buying into the theory that the Jaguars are tanking, and he comes in after 2 weeks as a top 10 quarterback. He's averaging over 22 points a game. Guys, are you relying on Minshew in any of your leagues, and are you buying into him as a weekly starter? Steve, let's go with you first.
I will say that I'm buying into him as a weekly streamer option at the very least. This week, very much so. I actually added him in a 10-team league I have that's only one QB. but I had Matthew Stafford as my QB the first 2 weeks, and I dropped him this week for Gardner Minshew. I think he's got a much better matchup, but I think that he is somebody that right now is a good streaming option, but if he keeps doing what he's been doing the first 2 weeks, I don't see how you cannot use him as a viable option going forward, especially in bigger leagues. Most of them are 12 teams, so he's obviously a guy that you could start there and feel confident in him scoring a lot of points. The Jaguars, their defense, they've given up a lot of points the first 2 weeks. That's against the Colts, that's against the Titans, both decent offenses, not ones that you're necessarily scared of, but they've been putting up a lot of points. And Gardner Minshew has been part of the reason that the Jaguars have been able to keep pace and are at that 1-1 mark. So I think that he is somebody right now that you have to absolutely consider. I'm using him this week, and I think that going forward, he is somebody that you absolutely have to keep in mind and someone that can become a weekly starter for you, even in a 12-team league.
Kevin, you want to add anything about Minshew? Do you have him in any leagues where you're relying on him, or
you're trying to hurt me right now, Sal? You know my feelings on Minshew. I've been like the most outspoken person to say that he's not a good quarterback and not a guy you want in dynasty.
Heath Cummings wants to speak to you about that.
Listen, I will tell you this: for a redraft league, I think he's a good pickup, and I think he's a guy you can stream week to week for now, just like Steve said. But I did hear a rumor that the Jaguars GM is looking to hire the Chargers medical staff to come over and help Minshew pregame so that they can make sure that he stops winning and playing well, because I think they're really looking forward to an earlier pick than he's trying to give them. So keep that in mind as you're picking up the Minshew.
Let me just say to Kareem, our good friend, Mr. Showtime, I said we would do the Jaguars first. He's like a baby on Christmas morning. He's so excited that the Funhouse is back. He's got to start talking about Fitz. We'll get to Fitz in a minute. Let's roll over to James Robinson, perhaps the biggest surprise, definitely the biggest surprise on the Jaguars this year, but one of the biggest surprises in fantasy and in the NFL this year. He's an undrafted rookie. He stepped in. He's carried the load, 32 carries through the first 2 weeks. He's also handled 4 of the 5 targets that he's seen, 210 total yards and a touchdown. Were you guys fortunate enough to grab him anywhere when he became the hot free agent? And are you plugging him in as a weekly RB2 or a flex? Kevin, let's go with you first.
I had a couple of leagues that drafted right up, before the season, and I was actually able to draft him in a couple. I didn't get him on the waiver wire anywhere, I don't believe, but yeah, he's absolutely in my lineup right now, no question about it. With the volume that he's getting and until the production slows down considerably, I don't see why he wouldn't be in your lineup. He's better than some of the other guys that I was starting in lineups, and I had high hopes for Cam Akers. He's obviously off to a slow start, but I certainly would put Robinson in over Akers, no question about it. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure Akers is going to even touch the field this week with a cartilage injury, rib cartilage injury. So we won't get too much into the weekend games, but Darrell Henderson looked pretty good. Coming back from the dead. Steve, how about yourself? Just quickly before you say it, in Scott Fishbowl, I have lost Christian McCaffrey, Le'Veon Bell, and Phillip Lindsay. So James Robinson is legitimately my only startable running back, but you have to start 2. So McKissick will be in there with him of all people. But Steve, what are you doing with James Robinson?
Yeah, I feel the same way Kevin does, except for I was not lucky enough to get him on any teams in any of my leagues that I'm in. So I'm not reaping the benefit of James Robinson. And I think I didn't really give him the credit that he deserves, obviously, because I assumed that the Jaguars were going to be awful. I didn't think that they were going to be in many games, and they've proven to be able to keep pace, and that keeps the running game very viable. So he has stepped into that role that we all had hoped, Leonard Fournette would have. And he's taken over. Like Kevin said, he's got the volume. So, yeah, you're absolutely putting him in there every week as an RB2 or a flex at the very worst because of how late you were able to get him.
Cool. No, I can't disagree with you guys at all. He's absolutely RB2 to flex worthy every week right now. No one is challenging him for touches, and no one will challenge him for touches. They have 2 other running backs on the roster, Chris Thompson, who is a pass-catching back, and they signed Dare Ogunbowale, who I'm not sure has seen the field yet, but again, he was a pass-catching guy in Tampa Bay. So where Fournette ended up obviously taking his place and giving him room to roll. So let's go over to the Jaguars wide receivers in the preseason to talk focused mostly on DJ Chark with a little bit of the highly drafted rookie Laviska Shenault sprinkled in. And in the distance, some Dede Westbrook. Well, Westbrook hasn't dressed for a game. And through 2 games, it's fourth-year player Keelan Cole that comes in as the 16th ranked wide receiver on the heels of catching a touchdown in each game. The rookie comes in ahead of Chark as well. The targets break down 12 apiece for Cole and Shenault, a paltry 7 for Chark. I always say Shark instead of Chark. I know it's Chark, but I say Shark.
I want to talk about why you said poultry.
Poultry, because sharks and chicken.
Sharks eat chicken?
It's a paltry, not poultry. My New York accent made it sound like a chicken, but no, a paltry, P-A-W-L, Steve. Is it time to panic on a guy you probably spent a decently high draft pick on, like 4th or 5th round on Chark? Or do you think it's just a matter of this offense finding its way early, Kevin, and you're going to stick with Chark every week in your lineup because he brings in the possibility of that blow-up game?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has more upside than the other 2 guys for sure, right? I mean, on any given game, I don't see Keelan Cole or, Laviska Shenault really having that huge breakout game that you could see Chark having, 150 yards and a touchdown kind of thing. I'd like to see him getting more volume. I just think maybe it's a product of, Gardner Minshew not being the best quarterback in the world and taking some smaller things, some shorter passes. And, part of that's, I'm kidding about the Minshew thing. He has been good. But part of that is the offensive line really hasn't been that overly great anyway. He's got to get the ball out quickly. Doesn't take a lot of time, have a lot of time to let plays develop as much, which is kind of hurts Chark's game, right? More than it does the other 2. So I think that's what you're seeing. I think you got to keep starting Chark unless you have better options, but I'm not going to start Keelan Cole or Laviska Shenault over Chark. I wouldn't make that move in any way.
Steven?
Yeah, I would say that I think that one of the things is that Gardner Minshew, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but he's targeted a lot of players. I know they've got a few different tight ends that they're using right now, and the targets are spread out pretty, they're pretty thin. So that's one thing. And I think that with the success that they have been able to have, maybe the focus being on Chark to start the season because they didn't believe in these other weapons and Keelan Cole's really stepped on the scene. He's going to, get more attention, which might open things up for Chark as well. So I think that, better days are ahead for him. I am in the same boat as Kevin. We're in agreement yet again. I would still be starting him each and every week.
I don't like the fact that you guys are agreeing on everything, but I got to agree with both points that you guys both made. So it's nice. It's a little harmonious thing where the 3 of us agree. I will tell you that I do like what I'm seeing out of Shenault because, Keelan Cole we've seen before. He's had games here or there, and I don't think Cole will sustain what he's doing. But I do like what we're seeing out of Shenault because he's getting carries also. They're finding ways to game plan into the offense, similar to how I saw the Raiders use Ruggs in week 1 and then go away from it a little bit with him a little bit banged up. He was more of a decoy this past week. But I like the way I'm seeing some of these rookies get used, and Shenault is definitely one of them. Just quickly before we move on to the Dolphins, Tyler Eifert, he reared his head in Jacksonville, and I'll say this. He saw 6 targets last week. He caught a touchdown. He has the most air yards of all Jacksonville players through 2 games, believe it or not. So just Kevin's shaking his head. He's not believing in Eifert. Just saying, keep him on your radar, Kevin. I'm not asking you to add him anywhere. I'm not forcing you into anything you don't want to do, Kevin.
What if I told you, Sal, he's on several rosters of mine?
I would tell you that you're crazy. But
well, listen, we're talking dynasty more than anything else, and he's a guy that I picked up off waiver wire, in the offseason because, who else did they have at tight end? And there's always the chance. He was a talented player, so you never know. In some of the leagues that I play in, tight end premium, where the tight end position gets very thin very quickly, yeah, I have a couple of rosters with him on it, and I'm not afraid to say that I'm probably not going to play him all year. So
you know where they could use him right now?
I've heard of a place.
Cincinnati. CJ Uzama was looking like he was going to break out a little bit, and he turned it to Tyler Eifert, basically. I think it's the jinx of the Cincinnati tight end. So Drew Sample, tighten up your knees this week, pal. Could get dangerous out there. Guys, let's shoot over to the Miami Dolphins.
Before we go anywhere, can we just say a silent prayer that your boy doesn't get drafted by the Bengals someday?
Oh, good Lord, have mercy. he's referring, of course, to Jeremy Ruckert. I'm personally obligated. Personally obligated to mention his name every time we get together. But Ohio State tight end Jeremy Ruckert, and they will be back in October. Big Ten football is back. It took them a little while to wake up and realize the entire country's playing, boys. Let's get out there. But guys, just on that note, I'm knocking on wood. We've been fortunate. We're going into week 3 with no issues in the NFL. College football is going into week 4 with no issues. And
issues.
Well, okay, Steve, way to ruin everything.
I'm sorry.
It's all
Steve,
good.
You're the worst. Can you put the chair on?
Yeah, get it. There he is. There's the chair. I don't know if you saw. I made a comment about the Scott Fish Funko Pop being the real star of the SFE Podathon, and there was some blowback about the SFP Podathon, about the Podathon chair. That chair has a following.
You know what? Those that follow the chair are very loyal to the chair. They will defend it to the end.
We have a question in the chat. A few questions have been coming in, and guys, I apologize if I don't get to them because we're doing a Thursday preview show. But this question involves DJ Chark. So, should he use Chark, Jerry Jeudy, or Fuller instead of Beckham, Green, Allen, and Slayton? One of those guys. So, would you slide Chark? Let's just answer if we would slide Chark into that lineup over OBJ, AJ Green, who's seeing tons of targets and 8 yards but not catching anything, Allen, or Darius Slayton? Steve?
That's a close one. I think I would use Beckham and Green and Slayton because I think they're going to be losing. I think they're going to be getting a lot of targets. Like you said, I think they're going to have more opportunity. Keenan Allen, with Justin Herbert starting, we don't know exactly how that's going to work out. He has usually been the target monster each and every year. So he would be the close one for me. I think that him and Chark are really a toss-up. I think the other 3 other guys that I would be starting. And Chark's matchup is good this week, though. I really like it against the Dolphins. I like Minshew against the Dolphins. That would be a close one. I'd probably roll Chark over Allen this week.
Kevin, anything?
I don't know that I could put Chark in front of Allen. I do like the matchup that Chark has, but given the usage and the way that Beckham kind of broke out a little bit last week, and we've seen the targets with Green, I gotta imagine he shakes the rust off at some point here. And Slayton's just been straight fire. So I just, I think I'm gonna stick with that 4. I don't think I'm subbing anyone.
Well, very good. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins, the 0-2 Miami Dolphins. And listen, if you're playing Ryan Fitzpatrick, even in a 2 QB or a super flex league, you're flying by the seat of your pants, right? That's essentially what watching him play is like. We all love his youthful enthusiasm, especially from a guy who's 8 years older than any other player on the Miami Dolphins roster. I'll add that the Jaguars gave up 4 passing touchdowns this past week to Ryan Tannehill. That might get you a little bit excited about Fitzy. But Kevin, is this a guy you have anywhere? I do have him in one of the Capitals Pigs leagues as my number 2 quarterback, but I traded for Derek Carr last week because I don't know how long Fitz is going to hold that job. They're 0-2, and is a good chance Tua is going to see the field at some point in the next few weeks. So are you relying on Fitzy? Do you like the idea that he's seeing a defense that gave up 4 passing touchdowns a week ago?
No, I mean, this week, maybe if you're in a bind for some reason, although I'm not sure what kind of bind you'd be in that would cause you to start Fitzpatrick. I mean, look, he's fine. I'm with you. What's that?
Maybe if you lost Drew Lock.
Maybe if you had Drew Lock and Tyrod Taylor as your second and third quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback league, you'd be in a place where you'd start Fitzpatrick. Other than that, I think you're going to be in fine shape because Fitzpatrick should have been your third QB either way. Fourth QB maybe even. I do have him on a couple of rosters. I don't think that he starts anywhere for me, and he would be a full on reserve, pull cord in case of emergency kind of thing for me. I mean, this is not a bad place to start him. You got to figure that the Jaguars defense hasn't been great, so I'm fine with starting him this week if you needed to. We got Zach saying that he's starting him over Darnold and Wentz. I don't know that I could do Wentz. Darnold,
why not?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he's swell looking. Oh, you meant put him in your lineup. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's been a
no. That's classic Sal humor there. You're right. I mean, Wentz hasn't been great, so I see what you're saying, Steve. But I don't know. I stick with the guys that I think have a bigger upside, and I still got to believe that Wentz does.
Early winner for best NFL moment of the year: Carson Wentz being booed at home by fake crowd noise after throwing an interception. You gotta love Philadelphia. Those fans and the people working for them who are obviously fans. They really know how to bring the heat on a player when there's no fans in the crowd. So, Steve, let me tell you about a league where I was relying on Jimmy Garoppolo and Drew Brees in a super flex. And my backup was Tyrod Taylor. So now I lost Garoppolo for who knows how long. And Tyrod Taylor got punctured lung by his own team doctor. I would be fawning over Ryan Fitzpatrick in that league. So, like Kevin said at the top of the show, we play in some deep leagues. We play in a lot of leagues. So there's places where people need him. Steve, do you rely on Fitzpatrick? Because I think in a league you did have him as your number 2 quarterback. Did you get rid of him there? This was one of those pigs leagues like a year ago.
Yeah, I don't have him anymore. Honestly, I'm not sure if I ever did. I don't think I did. I can't remember having him. And yeah, we play in 2 deep of leagues where people hold on to these guys. I honestly could use him in a few spots right now, and am not able to get him because people own him. And so yeah, I think he's viable this week with the a couple injuries that we had, like you said, Garoppolo. And then with Locke not being available this week, yeah, he is somebody that has a decent matchup. And so, yeah, I think you got to think about rolling him out there.
Well, talking about all these injuries that have gone on in the league, and it was mostly a running back issue this week. So some wide receivers as well. But let's talk about the Dolphins running backs. On a whole, this team is tough to find consistency from, but the running backs seem to be the most jumbled. So in the offseason, when we were deciding between maybe adding Jordan Howard or Matt Breida to our rosters, Myles Gaskin sneaks in the back door. And Myles Gaskin, he leads this team in touches, including 10 receptions on 11 targets. If I asked you guys to guess how many plays of the 137 that the Dolphins have run this season that Jordan Howard has been on the field, 137 plays for the Dolphins. How many times has Jordan Howard been on the field? Kevin, go first.
26.
Steve.
Is this a Price is Right type situation where I just
I'm
gonna go 17. I'm gonna go lower.
So Steve is either fucking with us, Kevin, or that's the luckiest guest ever because 17 times Jordan Howard has gotten on the field in 2 games and 137 plays. He has 13 carries for 11 yards, but he has a touchdown in each game, which has kept him from being dropped on fantasy rosters. I mean, can you start this guy tomorrow night? He's going to blow up tomorrow night, right? That he's going to blow up and have like a 65-yard 2-touchdown game.
He's not. I mean, 2 touchdowns, yeah, maybe. But it'll be 2 touchdowns with like 18 yards because he's going to get 2 goal line carries and maybe 4 other carries throughout the game to get first downs. I mean, they're just not using him. They're not using him for anything other than it seems like short yardage. Maybe you've seen him. I haven't watched full on every Miami game, so I can't say that I could tell you every carry he's done, but it seems like it's short yardage only for him. And, Flores seems to want to mix up the backfield pretty well, and that's what he's going to do. It is what it is. I didn't expect much out of Jordan Howard. I expected more than this.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Yeah, I expected him to lead the backfield in carries at least. I mean, he's been good everywhere he's been. He's been, an RB2 for fantasy, a flex play at the very worst in years that he's, not been injured at all. And so he was one of those guys that you targeted if you're into the 0 RB thing or late round RB depth. He was somebody that a lot of guys targeted. And I'm hoping that maybe this changes going forward. If he does blow up tomorrow night, it's going to be on a lot of people's benches, and rightfully so. I don't know how you could confidently start him right now until you get some more clarity on the backfield and somebody really takes over. But I do have Myles Gaskin on one dynasty team that I feel great about right now. That's cool.
Yeah, I have no Myles Gaskin, but I would have added him last week. I did try in some place. I might have added him. We're in too many friggin' leagues. He's probably on a roster somewhere, but he was a guy I would have added last week, and if he's floating around, I would. He leads the team in carries at 16 to Howard's 13, and like I said, 11 targets through 2 games. He's going to be the pass catching back there. Breda has not registered even a blip on that team, and that's saying a lot considering Jordan Howard is barely blipping. So, all right, let's move on to the Dolphins wide receivers. The Parker and Preston show has not quite been what we hoped. With both players fighting nagging injuries. Parker was able to get a touchdown this past week. He checks in at wide receiver 32, coincidentally, right below Chenault at 31 and right above Chark at 33. These guys are all lumped in together. So we got a bunch of underperforming wide receivers in this game. What do you do with these guys, Kevin? Can we? I mean, I think you got to roll Devontae Parker out there if you have him, at least as a flex, because we saw the big breakout last year, right? It's for real. Tell me it's for real, Kevin.
No. Well, I mean, it might be for real. Maybe he rebounds at some point, but I'm not. He's on my bench for sure. No question about that. I mean, I'm not putting him in until I absolutely see a couple of games. He's another one of those guys that I'm always willing to miss a few big games from because I'll wait for him to get that streak because he's going to go on a run where he has 5 or 6 games. So if you miss the first 2, you're going to be okay, for 3 or 4 more games after that. So he's a guy I always wait and see on. He's not on a whole lot of my teams because I was never a huge believer in him. And I'm not going to pay up when he does show out. So for me, if I did have him, I'd be, waiting and seeing until he hits that first couple of games where he hits his stride, and then you can jump on the streak.
Yeah, I picked them up in the offseason in picks too because I got what I felt was a low offer. Like they wanted some picks, and they weren't high picks, and I was able to add him to the roster. So I'm hoping he starts getting. I think he's seen 4 and 5 targets in the first 2 games, or 5 and 6 targets, and he had 4 and 5 receptions, something along those lines. So, I mean, the targets are okay. We'd like to see something more around 8, 9 to 10 for a lead guy in an offense. Steve, you have anything on Parker, or would you like to discuss Preston Williams, who he was the guy we thought would pass Parker up this year? Okay, guys, it's 2 weeks, right? I mean, anything could happen. Kevin doesn't agree on Preston Williams, but I did add him in places where I thought I was going to have a breakout player. Should I still hold out hope, Steve, that he could be a breakout player in 2020?
I wouldn't hold a hope for 2020 breakout player right now. I mean, you play in deep enough leagues where you can add him and it's not going to really hurt you too much. But as of right now, he's coming in at wide receiver 80. So he's doing absolutely nothing. And yeah, last year he started out the season. He was the man. And then he had that knee injury. He missed the rest of the season. A lot of people were hoping that he was going to come back. He's he's free basically everywhere, but now we're seeing why. Like you said, 2 weeks, definitely a name to keep your eye on, but not somebody that you're needing to worry about right now.
Guys, you know who the best wide receiver on the Dolphins has actually been?
Yes.
Who is it?
Their tight end.
It is the tight end. Steve is on the ball tonight, Kevin. I don't know. He actually must have been paying attention.
The chair's feeding him answers. There's no question about it.
Well, since Steve and Kevin already know this, then we'll tell you people listening at home that Mike Gesicki has lined up in a slot or out wide on 92% of his snaps. He's playing as a wide receiver. He has run a route on 63 of Ryan Fitzpatrick's 86 dropbacks, and he is seeing a team high 20.7% target share. Are we comfortable rolling Mike Gesicki out as your tight end every week? You could cut the other guys on your roster because this is our guy, Kevin.
Well, who's cutting all the guys on their roster just because of one guy? I mean, that's not how that works. You certainly need a bye week fill in. You certainly, tight end's a very fragile position, so you certainly want some kind of injury backup. But I'd be fine with him being my number one tight end for the rest of the season, at least right now. I mean, we'll see if he starts to fade or if he falls apart. You didn't give up too much to get Gesicki, so you can probably work around it if he falls apart. But if you drafted him, you probably drafted him late with the intention of I'm going to stack a few guys and hope one of them pops, and hopefully he keeps it up, and he's that guy that did.
Speaking of tight ends, I didn't give too much up for, and we've referenced the Capitalist Pigs Leagues a couple of times.
We don't want to hear about your personal life, Steve.
No. Listen. So anyway, I bought Tyler Higbee two seasons, probably the 2018 season for $5, and he was a roster casualty pre 2019 for me. And if I could tell you that I was offered Janu Smith for a really cheap price during last season and turned him down because I had Delaney Walker. Woof, talk about tight ends I could have paid nothing for and had. That hurts watching those two be successful. Steve, you want to add anything about Mike Gesicki?
No, other than like what Kevin said, he was somebody that you drafted as hopeful. You're hopeful as a streamer. He's had a great first 2 weeks, and he's got a great matchup this week. He's going up against the 30th ranked defense and the Jaguars against tight ends. So yes, roll him out there this week, and roll with it and see what happens. I mean, might as well, like you said, he's getting the most targets. He's getting a lot of looks. He's got nobody that he's fighting time with. You can feel confident in him going forward.
All right, well, guys, we're going to come to Steve's favorite part of the show because we're going to talk a little bit of gambling. I told him we were going to do some player props and pick the over-unders and the winners in this game, and he lit up like a schoolgirl on her prom invite night. Kevin and Steve, did you guys happen to get the pictures I sent of the props we'll be discussing?
Whoa, we got them.
I did.
All right, so we're going to start with a list I have of anytime touchdown scores in the game. Tell me who you picked from that list. Now, all these bets will be made with $100 or anywhere up to $200. I am writing them down. I'm keeping track, and we are going to see who makes the most money, fake money, at the end of the season. So you have an unlimited budget, and you can make a bet anywhere from as little as $100 or as most as $200. Kevin, who will be the anytime scorer in this game for you?
I'm gonna put $100. Or you could say a bet. You can give me the bet up to 200. Is that what you said?
You could go anywhere from 100 up to 200. You could do 105. You could do 120. Anything you want, as little as 100 or as much as 200.
I'm gonna throw $200 down on the Miami defense at plus 550.
Wow.
I'm gonna go big for the big money right here.
Wow, Steve. I mean,
Gardner Minshew throws a pick six. Miami defense scores.
Wow. Kevin is brave when it's fake money.
He's gonna regret that. People learned their lesson last week for betting against Minshew.
Well, Steve, who are you picking?
I'm going to go with 150 on Jordan Howard at plus 250. We just talked about him. He got in the end zone last week. I think they're going to use him, like Kevin said, as a goal line back. So I'm going 150 on Jordan Howard at plus 250.
That's a nice number. I'm gonna go a little less. I'm gonna bet just a minimum of $100, and I'm going to put it on Preston Williams at plus 240 to get his first touchdown of 2020. Let's move over.
See, that's a smart move there, Sal, because he knows if we all lose, he wins.
Well, the idea behind gambling is to know your odds and be smart about it. You came out here and you basically just throwing your penis out on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both are in agreement that Kevin has lost $200.
All right, guys, let's go over to the quarterbacks and their passing yardage. And I got Gardner Minshew over 264.5 or under 264.5. Both bets are a minus 110. Kevin, what do you got?
Are they going to count the defensive yards on the pick six towards his yardage?
That doesn't. Kevin obviously doesn't bet, or he's just a fool. No. How much completed yardage from him to a eligible receiver on his team, over or under 264.5?
That's a good number. I think that's a good line for him, but I'm going to say he's going to go over. I'll take the minus 176 and give him the over on that one. I think he gets over 264 or 265. He's going to throw a lot. This game's going to be another high scoring affair. And while I do think there's a pick six somewhere in there, he's probably going to toss a few touchdowns and probably have a high yardage day. So
just so you know, the 176 is for the passing touchdowns. It's minus 110.
I gotcha. Well, your picture would suggest otherwise. Oh no, I see. Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna get to touchdowns in a second. This is yardage. So over under. So you're gonna go over 264.5.
Yep.
And you're gonna bet how much?
I will bet. Same thing between 1 and 200.
So all the bets will be the same. Yes.
All the bets will be the same. I'll bet 125 on that.
125. Steve. Over or under 264.5 for Minshew passing yards.
I'm going $100 at the minimum. I'm also going to go over, though.
Steve's going over at 100. What? This is going to be interesting, guys. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under at $100. I think they mix it up with James Robinson in this game. So I'm going to go under. While we're on passing yardage, let's go over to Ryan Fitzpatrick. His number is at over under 270.5 for minus 110. Steve, over under on Fitzy hitting that 270.5 number.
I am going to go with 125 on the under there. Jacksonville secondary only giving up 100, or not 100. They are the 13th best defense against wide receivers. They do have the weakness against the tight end, like I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to go under the 270. I think that they're going to, for some reason, try and get the running backs involved like they have been doing. But, yeah, so I'm going to go under at 125.
Kevin?
Give me the over at 100.
Kevin's getting bold. Over at 100. I am with Steve in the under. I'll go 150 on the under. And our last prop bet will be passing touchdowns from these two quarterbacks. Both guys are at over or under 1.5. Minshew's over number comes in at a minus 176. So you got to really bet some money to make some money on this one, Kevin. So are you going to bet less money on the under in the hopes that you hit, or are you going to just throw it out there?
Give me 176 on the over.
All right, so Kevin is over at 176. He's getting crazy. He wants to go even. He's trying to get the even $100 here.
Give me the even hundo.
I'll just go 200 on the over.
Well, Steve, I am with you. I picked the exact same thing. I am over on $200, and that brings us to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Same number, over under 1.5, and he's at minus 134 to go over, or plus 106 to be under. Steve?
This one's a little tougher. I think I'm going to go with the under with the passing touchdowns, and I'm going to go at just an even 100.
All right, Kevin.
So Steve's basing his bet on Fitzpatrick on the fact that he thinks Howard's going to get in the end zone a couple times here. So I think Fitzpatrick throws for over 1.5 touchdowns. I'll take the over. Give it to me for $100.
You also factor in Fitzpatrick could run for a touchdown as well instead of throwing one.
It's possible.
Also very true. I'm going to plop down a big fat $200 on over 1.5 for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like I said, we saw Tannehill throw for 4 last week. Fitzy's going to pop 2 at minimum into the hands. One of them to my man Preston Williams, and I'm going to go bada boom on that. And I'm going to win more money than these guys over here. All right, guys, all that's left is to pick the over and the under on this game. And I don't think I sent to you guys the breakdown, but the over-under is 48.5, and it's a minus 105 on both numbers. I'm going to go over for $100. I'll go first on this one. Kevin, what are you doing?
I'll do the same as you, my friend.
Smart guy. So he's over 48.5 at $100. And Steve?
I'll go over at 150.
Wow. Okay, so
there's a little bit extra money on it, huh?
We all feel like there's going to be points put up in this game. That's a decently, that's a moderate total, right? It's not there's some games on the slate this weekend that are like 54 and 56 that are just going to be so much fun. Hopefully they hit. Steve, you son of a bitch. Guys, the last thing we want to do here is pick a winner. The Jaguars are home. They are favored by 3. If you take the Jaguars minus the 3, you are laying it at minus 105. And if you take the Dolphins at a plus 3, you are looking at a minus 115. So, Steve, we will go with you first. Who's going to win this game outright, Steve? And then also who's going to win it with the points? The outright's not going to count towards anything, but.
All right, outright, I'm going to go the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win. I am also going to take them with the minus 3 at home. I believe in Gardner Minshew. I think that he is what everybody thought Baker Mayfield was going to be and hoped that Baker Mayfield would be. And so I'm going with him, and I'm going to take the minus 3.
I got to say, from a swagger standpoint and actually going out there and putting up, I can't disagree with that too much, Kevin. Who are you? Who's going to win this game outright, and who's going to cover the points?
I'm with Steve.
Do I have to give money on that? Sorry.
You do. Yes, please.
Okay, I will go just an even 100 at minus 3 for the Jaguars.
Okay.
I'll take the Jaguars minus 3 for 150. I think they're going to win outright as well.
Well, they would have to if they were covering that minus 3, right?
Quite obviously.
Guys, this is going to be fun because I'm going to take the Dolphins plus the 3 for $100 also, and I think that the magic shows up. The magic shows up late in Jacksonville tomorrow, and Ryan Fitzpatrick pulls it out late. He's not going to throw for a ton of yards. He's not going to hit that 270 number, but late in this game, he is going to do something to pull this game out. So I'm going to take the Dolphins at plus 3, and that's it, Steve. It's under 45 minutes. We're wrapping this sucker up. You got anything you want to say to the folks listening in their cars or sitting at their homes wondering why they've spent 45 minutes with us?
I apologize for everything. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of the Fantasy Football Funhouse. You can find us on Twitter at FF Funhouse. You can find me at Sid Skeet. You can follow Sal at SalitoFF. Kevin Cotillo's at Kevin Cotillo FF, I think. I'm not sure. Cool. Just look for Kevin Cotillo. You'll find him.
It's okay.
And, that's all I got.
We get to this part of the show, Kevin, and I know that the same thing is on both of our minds, and that's James Catullus. And we lost a great guy, a good fantasy community member, someone who joined us on the SFB Podathon every year. He came to help us give to others. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to let people know what they should do at this time with James.
Yeah, for sure. You can check out the link. I'll get it. We'll get it up on the FF Funhouse Twitter account. We'll have a pinned tweet to the link that you can send some money to his family in this time of need. I mean, obviously, our hearts go out to them. I can't imagine a more scary and difficult thing for a family to deal with than something like that, where you can't see it coming. And James was such a great guy, such a good-natured individual in this industry. You've seen over the last few days how many people have just expressed how much he helped them or talked to them or just shooting the shit, whatever it is. He's just a genuine guy, and I think we've all talked about it several times. this year about how important it is that this community is, rallied around families and centered with good people that really truly respect and enjoy their families. And he was clearly one of those types of guys. So anything you can do to give to their family in their time of need, like I said, we'll tweet it out, and we'll get a link up pinned to our Twitter handles, and just check it out. And anything you give, $1, $5, $50, $100, whatever it is.
I'll add, guys, and I haven't even spoken to you guys about this yet, but Sal Stefanali reached out to me. He asked me if I had a little mini podathon in me. So we're putting that together for this Saturday. It's probably going to only be about 4 hours. Of course, I expect you guys to come by for however long you can come by. Stay tuned to all those Twitter handles that Steve put out there, because the information will come out. We're going to have a bunch of his closest fantasy industry friends on. I spoke with John Hogue today, and he gave me a list of everybody to get on. And we're just going to honor James and remember James. We're going to talk some fantasy football and have some fun with it, because I know that that's what he would want us to do. So it's not finalized. The time is not finalized, but we are going to do that this Saturday. There'll be a bunch of the fantasy guys you know and love from the community, and we're going to try to get people to donate a little bit more money to James's family. So on that message, guys, enjoy your football weekend, because that's what James would want us to do. And Steve, hit yourself off the forehead.